Let's call ourselves to order. Meeting of the West Newbury Board of Selectmen, Monday, March 15th. It is 7:03 p.m. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. The meeting is also accessible by remote participation. It is a Zoom meeting tonight. The phone number for phone access is 646-558-8656. This particular meeting ID is 932-6155-9111, and the passcode is 431123. Just some reminders. The town election is Monday, May 3rd, from and it's Monday, not a Tuesday. Some people always think elections are on Tuesday. It's Monday, May 3rd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The annual and special town meetings will be later on in the spring this year, as last year, on Saturday, May 22nd. And they will be outdoors. Mike, has the time for nomination papers to be turned in, is that today? Is that done?
That is done. The time to request papers was March 11th, and to return them was March 15th. Everyone who requested papers did return them.
Okay. At the moment, do we have any contested elections?
We still have to verify some of the signatures for the papers that were returned today, but presently it seems that the only contested election will be for the Board of Assessors.
Okay. Reminder for everyone to subscribe to the town news and announcements on wnewbury.org/subscribe. First item on the agenda is updates regarding the regional vaccine clinics and perhaps phased opening of the town buildings. Angus, you want to weigh in on those?
Sure. We've got Blake on, and certainly he may have additional observations on the clinics, but sure, it's been a tremendous success, the continued collaboration within the region. There's been quite a lot, as I think people would assume, behind the scenes, a lot of coordination among the various health departments, emergency, first responders, finance administration, councils on aging, and we've seen the kind of the fruits of that come to light. It's been a real success story and been recognized now by the Commonwealth at the highest levels as part of the vaccination strategy, which we felt right along it certainly should be. So we expect that to continue really every weekend going forward. We don't know that for certain because we don't know, whether we will definitely have vaccine that week. But right now, this is something that we're geared up to do weekly going forward. I met with Paul this afternoon, and I'm not prepared to share dates, but I can tell you that he and his and the team are working to schedule some teachers-only clinics. So that's in the offing, and we hope to be able to announce something official on that, fairly soon. Yeah, it's been tremendous. And then, as I think everybody knows at this point, it wasn't that long ago that the federal government changed its position to where now FEMA is going to be reimbursing 100% of costs associated with the vaccination clinics. It had been at the 75% reimbursement rate. So that's a huge plus. And so everybody involved is doing a great job of tracking those expenses methodically, so that we can timely put those in with the feds for reimbursement. We did our last kind of big data download about a week ago, where we transferred over all receipts from the prior period of time. So I think we're going to be in good shape with that. Obviously, there's going to be a lag between putting in the expenses and actually getting the money back. But the Commonwealth has said that they're not going to hit free cash if, for instance, there's unreimbursed expenses as of June 30th. That's not going to hit free cash. So we're not too concerned about the time lag of actually getting the money back. So on the clinics, that's all I have to say. I do have some other things to say in terms of openness, but I didn't know if we wanted to stay focused on the clinics initially and then get to the other topic.
Blake, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't. I really don't, but we had a very successful clinic this weekend. We had it Saturday and Sunday over at the Amesbury High School. We distributed well over 2,000 vaccines. So it went great. It's really considered a mass vaccine site now. And it appears that, from what I'm understanding, I believe Angus will back me, I think all of our 75-plus-year-old residents in West Newbury should be taken care of by now. If not, it should be minimal at this point.
That's great.
It is good. So that's it, Angus. Do you want to take over again, sir?
Yeah. So in terms of, as you know, we've been just doing business remotely for quite a while now. And, there is still, some concern about variants. And as we're hearing from the CDC at the national level, we don't want to progress too quickly to where things could start to tilt in the other direction again. That's the last thing we want to do, is lose the progress that's been made. So I think what seems to be a healthy balance would be, we would continue to urge people to take advantage of town services via telephone and email. And I will say, as of about 2 hours ago, our phone system is fixed, thankfully. That was a glitch. But anyhow, we do feel we can conduct most town, essentially all town business remotely, with the exception of things like notaries and that kind of thing. So what we would say is, if people have need for services that cannot be met virtually, by all means, call the appropriate department or send an email. And by appointment, if people need to come into the office to conduct a specific transaction, that's something that we can accommodate without any trouble. I've been corresponding with the Council on Aging Director, and she met with her board on Friday, and they are going to be transitioning toward initially offering more outdoor programming and looking into the appropriate outdoor facility for that, starting with small groups, 5 to 10 people at the most. Some things under discussion, but not yet firmed up. Or, for instance, would people be expected to provide evidence of having received a vaccine to participate? Those are some of the things that need to still be fleshed out. And then on the library side, I spoke with the library director earlier today, and we've been in regular correspondence, both myself and with Paul. And that's going to continue to be based on the Board of Trustees and what timing that they'd like to look at for potentially changing things there.
Angus, have you're sort of the focus of getting the most emails and phone calls and so forth. So has there been any pushback from residents that they're not, say they want the 1910 building open, or they're not getting things done that they want to get done? Has there been any of that?
I have not gotten any correspondence, either emails or phone calls to that effect. I have had some, just not a lot, but, a handful of correspondences come in regarding the library and whether, curbside is sufficiently meeting people's needs. But that's been a relative, and I don't want to trivialize that in any way, but that's been a relatively small number of correspondence, less than 5. And on the town side, I haven't gotten any. I think the biggest concern that I think, at least from where I sit, that I hear people have is the access to town facilities for other meetings, and opening things up for other groups to be able to use the physical facilities. And, I think we need to continue to be cautious about that for reasons to do with maintaining a kind of a secure workspace and trying to balance things with our custodial resources, because that I think that's going to require some real planning and some resources to be able to do that. Hopefully we'll get to a point where, most everyone's vaccinated, including on staff. And I should be clear, we're not to that point yet. We still do have a number of staff, both in the town office and the library, that are not vaccinated and are not on the list to be vaccinated because they don't fit into any of the eligible categories yet. So that's going to be very important. We did do some research on what some other towns are doing, and what I've described about kind of either closed entirely or only open by appointment. Other communities that are in a similar position right now are Boxford, Georgetown, Marblehead, Merrimack, North Andover, North Reading, and Topsfield are all communities that are in a similar posture.
Okay. Any further comments on the COVID situation?
I just have one. I just received an email, if you don't mind me butting in. It looks like we're going to be reserving Saturday, March 20th and Saturday, March 27th for teachers and educators and childcare workers at the Amesbury clinics.
That's not what we got.
So I just figured I'd bring you in on that a little bit. I just received it literally a minute ago.
Who's talking?
Blake Seal.
Oh, is that okay? Can you hear me? It's Blake Seal.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, it sounds like there's some other another speaker as well.
All right, I just wanted to add that comment. I just found out a minute ago.
Thanks, Blake.
Great.
Thanks, Blake. Okay. Our next item is a special permit event permit for the Garden Club's plant sale in the center of town, and that would be on May 15th from 8 a.m. to noon. I looked over the application. I didn't see anything that wasn't that we needed to deal with. Any issues, Rick or Glenn?
No, I'm good with it. That's great.
No, I don't have any question.
Okay. Want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we issue the permit for the plant sale, the West Newbury Garden Club plant sale on. I know you said the date on May 15th from 8 a.m. to noon.
Second. All in favor?
Whole discussion. Are we,
Discussion.
does it say anything about a sign? Or is that coming at a later time?
That was last meeting, Glenn.
Glenn, by you last time.
You know what? I was going to vote for it for the last time. I was going to vote for it, honestly. That's funny. And I missed it. Okay, sorry.
But you know what, Glenn? We acknowledged your objection to it, and we give you credit for it anyway.
Thank you.
I said what you would have said, Glenn.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks from the Garden Club.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Next request is to waive the waiting period for the hiring of Amy Fialkowski. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, as a part-time dispatcher. Sounds fine to me.
Yeah, it sounds fine to me. I make a motion that we waive the 15-day waiting period for town manager appointment of Amy Fialkowski as part-time dispatcher.
Further discussion? I'll second that. Further discussion? Hearing none. Archibald, aye.
Glenn's muted. Pat Parker, aye.
Kemper, aye. Sorry, I'm still.
Thank you.
Next item is Rita Wolmering. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. As an associate member of the tree committee, she seems to have a great background. Certainly would be an addition to that. So I'd make a motion to put her as Rita Wolmering as an associate member of the tree committee.
Kemper, second.
So in discussion, I assume there's discussion. Hey,
Yeah.
I was curious, just where it says, I'm looking at your application, it says 20+ years managing an organic plant nursery and farm in Essex County, Mass. Where was that? Where were you?
Yes, we were in Salisbury, the herb pharmacy over at 30 Elmwood Street.
Oh, okay. Huh. Great. Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Parker, aye. Glenn, you're muted.
Kemper, aye.
Thank you, Rita.
So, hey, while we've got Fred on the line, Fred, ought the board be considering reestablishing the size of the committee to something larger? Because you've got quite a lot of associate members now.
No, we have two.
Oh, is
That's
it?
the
Okay.
original number, because the one person, Lionel Zupan, went on, but he withdrew after he never was present and withdrew he couldn't make the commitment. So Rita is filling the 7th and last spot, but I'm happy to open it up to more people. The more the merrier.
Great.
Anyway, we are very excited to have Rita. She'll be a great addition, and so thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Fred, just as an aside, I was really impressed when you first came on and I saw the bookshelves behind you. But now that I see you move around, I understand. I see it's an image.
That is in fact my science and nature bookshelf in my house.
Oh, when you move,
Yes.
okay. Oh, so it's a picture. It's all right.
It is a picture. When I have to teach down in Cambridge, I put this up so I can look even more impressive.
You do. You look like some wizened doctor.
Used up perhaps, but still vibrant. All right. Thanks again, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks, Rita.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Our next item is a kind of important, a big change. This will be an update for informational for a lot of people, I'm sure, for the changes in the pickup of our solid waste in our recycling. So I'll hand it right over to you, Blake.
All right. I'm not sure exactly, what you want to hear tonight. I'm being honest, but what we're gonna try to do is have a public hearing on April 6th to adopt a new trash regulation. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do that first because we kind of are on contractual agreement with Jason to get going on this. We extended. I don't know if the word extended, we revised and had a 1-year amended trash agreement with Jason Mello. So we really have to kind of get this back in gear and commit to doing automated trash pickup, hopefully starting June 1st.
Blake, when you say the public hearing is informational, it doesn't have any actual, would it have any, you're saying, I would think that you guys have already established the ground rules so people can make comments, but it's really not going to change anything.
Well, what we need to do I'm not sure which one, if the horse comes first and the cart comes first, but we need to almost immediately have a public hearing to vote on our the new regulations.
I thought you were a horse person, Blake.
Okay,
Didn't know that.
Okay, so the horse is coming first. So we're going to hold a public hearing to vote on adopting the new town contract, new town trash pickup.
When
where it
you
will be
say to vote,
automated.
you mean the Board of Health to vote?
Correct. We need to do that, and it can come in either order. Where we're getting pushed for time, where June 1st, or even if we had to push it off to July 1st, the quickest thing we need to do is put it in the paper under public notice for at least 2 weeks. That's why we picked hopefully April 6th to vote on trash.
Well, my recommendation, Blake, that
Sir,
question
Dan.
and answer thing that you sent out is awesome. Really answers everything, I think. I mean, the public will be, but make sure that gets disseminated before this public hearing, because that will answer, I think, 99% of anybody's questions. It was really well done.
Thank you, Glenn. We're trying to get it out, but once again, we're kind of in a rush. So we will be having open public meetings for questioning and, everything about it. It may not come before we vote on April 6th, but we're trying our hardest to do that.
Hey, Blake, I got a
mailing of that.
What's it?
Can you do a mailing of those questions? Because to Glenn's point, it was really good. It answers everything.
I guarantee it doesn't answer everything, Archie, but I appreciate that. Thank you. But I think we're going to have even more questions. But yes, we're going to get that out as soon as possible. We probably actually going to, Jane, found them. I mean, filled out all the answers. We're going to try to send those out next week. But in the meantime,
Isn't mailing kind of old? I'd get it on the website. I'd get it everywhere. A lot of people don't even open it. I don't know if it's a waste of money to mail it. I don't know. You guys would know better with the return, but whatever.
No,
It
Glenn,
was well done.
Glenn, I agree with you 110%, but I think we unfortunately probably need to send it out in the mail, because some people do not have internet and or not even internet.
I
email and this
understand.
and that. Yeah.
I understand. Yep. Yes, Mark.
Believe me, dealing with and Angus can, certainly he knows, he's been on board with us, dealing with even like the elderly, getting people to, send stuff to their email is harder than I ever imagined during the, 21st century. But there's still a lot of people out there that do not have emails and stuff.
Hey, Blake, I have some questions, which
Sure.
I confess I did not get to reading the
Sure.
queue. So you can virtually slap my hand if I ask a
No.
question that was in there. Fortunately, I'm out of reach, physical reach. The first one is last year when this was discussed and decided not to go forward, for the fiscal year we're currently in.
Yes.
There was some discussion about the possibility of small containers, what's a standard container, like a 65 or 85 gallon or something like that. I don't remember what they are, but there was some mention of the possibility of a smaller container because some people may have a problem, wrestling the larger containers down a hill, down a driveway. And was there any further consideration of that, or is that kind of a moot point?
The only consideration was in our question, I have it in front of me, but I forget exactly where that question was. If someone has a well-constructed one that they bought from a box store, we'll say Mr. Mello will send a representative of his company out to look at it. If it's usable, they can use it. Beyond that, it made it extremely way too confusing. It just made it way too confusing.
Yeah, no, I can see how from a handling standpoint for their automated equipment, it might be a problem, but I wanted to just flesh that out. So it sounds like that's not an option at this point. So
as far as
Rick, one of the questions was that was one. And then the further on, the answer to that was that if you do use your home one, then you're responsible for it also for any damage. But to go on that, there was a question, Rick, about long driveways, hills, single people, older people. That was one of the questions. But these barrels are very well balanced. They have really big wheels, and they're better than any box store one. They're balanced. They're made for this. So actually, this will be easier for somebody with the same amount of trash in it, having a smaller barrel. This is actually easier for them to maneuver around, so to speak, because of the design of it. Well, it's just easier. That was one of the questions actually that they answered.
Oh, okay.
Who's that?
Okay, another question for you, Blake. So on the draft contract under Exhibit A on recycled materials, plastics, it says plastics 1 and 2.
Yes.
And on a mailing that we received, that I received, which I'm assuming everybody in town received back a month or so, or a couple months back, it referenced plastics 1 through 7. So I'm wondering, is there a limitation now, or what? Is there a new limitation?
Well, there's always been what we should recycle. I'm not sure that I got that in the mail, but the 1 through 7, you said?
Yeah, 90. I looked at it this morning just because I thought it had changed, and
no, it shouldn't have, and I'm not sure which mailing you're talking about. I'll have to look into that.
Well, you know what? If somebody else talks for a second, I'll go get it off my refrigerator, and I'll.
Okay.
Blake, the colored thing, Blake, that has the dates on it.
Yeah.
Is all in that. It was all in that.
Yeah. I'll be right back.
Okay. That was actually, I think that was, oh God, that was out 3 or 4 months ago, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
Right. But I noticed it too. Is there a change in what's acceptable?
Well, there's been for a while. We also said like no pizza boxes. That's also in there. That's something we put in a long time ago. Are you referring just to the plastic? Is that what you're referring to?
In your write-up, you say 1 to 2, and the other thing is all the numbers. Yeah.
Well, I apologize to all the other ones that obviously got biased somehow, because it's not recyclable 1 through 7. No.
Yeah. So I am looking at it now, and it does say plastic containers number 1 through 7. So,
I'll apologize for the board for that. I mean, there's certain numbers that that we should recycle. How's that?
Yeah.
They'll take them, but it's not recyclable really.
So it's now they're going to be just 1s and 2s.
That's what we were told. Yes, just like I'm not sure if it's said on there. We're also not going to accept mattresses anymore. I'm not sure what. I'll be honest with you, which mailing that you have, Rick. And I'm sure.
Can you say, hey, Blake? Can you see that picture?
Yeah, that was the calendar. When did that come out, Rick?
Well, I think I probably got it in either December or January.
Okay, well,
it's the one for 2021. And right there it has.
Why don't we, Rick? I mean, Blake. Before we confuse people even more, why don't you just check with that, and then we can talk about it afterwards. You know what I mean? Because it seems like it's getting more confusing.
Yeah, I will check with that and notify everyone in this meeting tomorrow about that. I apologize because it also doesn't, if I'm not mistaken, that mailing doesn't even consider automated curbside, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so I guess you're gonna have to send out a new mailing anyway for
that is correct.
Reflect all that. So
that is correct.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make a big deal of it. I just wanted to clarify.
Ask all the questions you have.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's enough, Rick.
Actually, that's for this. I do have a question when we get to talking about the revolving fund, but that'll be
sure.
Conversation. So.
I'm kidding.
Actually, I do have a question.
I can take it, man.
Hey, Blake.
Yes, sir.
If you want to do some type of like public service announcement with a video that we could put on our station, our YouTube thing, and send it out of exactly what you were supposed to recycle and what not, and sometimes visual things help people, and do a little visual thing about the the new trash and recycling thing, because people need to understand for this to work. There is a lot of, you can't have overflowing barrels. I thought it was great. I think this is long overdue.
Thanks,
But
Glenn. I heard,
and it was
someone
well
told
done,
me-
I thought, with the stickers. And if people really want to throw things out, they have to pay a little bit more
Yes.
for it. And so,
Yes.
okay, thank you. That's
Thank
it. If
you,
you want to
Glenn.
do something, you can do it. We'll do it together.
Thank you,
if
sir.
want.
Angus, you had a question?
Yeah, I do, on the revolving fund, and my question is to Mike McCarron. Because now if this takes effect in June instead of July, if we put that revolving fund article on the special, would that establish that fund this fiscal year? And the reason I'm asking is, if there's money coming in this fiscal year, I just want to make sure, and with Stephanie on and Mike on, I figured, is that going to allow us to receive monies if someone, let's say, wants to buy an extra barrel for $100? The idea of the revolving fund is we can collect the money and then use it to pay Mello for that $100. Will that work if we put that on the special? Right now, it's on the draft annual town meeting.
When they put in this concept of revolving funds with the Municipal Modernization Act, they basically allowed people to make it immediately effective. So that's how I would treat it. That it was even if it's on the the annual, that it should be effective. So that's what happened then, and I'm assuming that the DOR would certainly not balk at doing it. And I think that's how we've done it on each occasion when we've added a fund to it, is that we've started it right at the fiscal year and added it right in.
Great.
So for me to clarify that, so could it be done for June 1st, or does it need to begin July 1st?
I heard yes. I heard the answer.
Yeah,
Yes.
the answer to that is yes.
All right, sorry. Yep, good.
Let me just on that note. So, town meeting is going to be May. What did we say? May 22nd. So that only gives you 5 days before June 1st. So it's going to be pretty. I'm just wondering if there's going to be like hundreds of people trying to get an additional barrel in the first week, and you may have to tell people that's not going to be possible.
I think, well, if you read it, I'm not sure if it was in the informational we sent you this afternoon, but it's not just the $100, it's also $200 on that. So I think that itself is going to become a surprise to people. So I don't think we're going to have hundreds of people knocking down our doors. I could be wrong. Remember, we're not talking about changing the volume of trash, because right now we currently allow 232 gallons, and we're talking about a 65-gallon container. So
And it's $100 to buy a new one, and then an extra $200 for a annual fee to collect that barrel.
That is correct. And we've come to the conclusion we were going to try to do a 6 months, but if people come into us 3 months in, we're just going to prorate also. Meaning we can't charge them the whole X, say 200. We'll prorate it for 9 months, and it'll be, $150 or whatever.
Okay.
It's a lot of change for everyone. We do understand that. It's a lot of change for me too. But this is something we kind of agreed with Mr. Mello back in 2019 when we accepted this contract for automated. This is where we were heading. But COVID kind of got in our way, unfortunately. So it is kind of coming fast and quick. We do understand that, but we're going to hopefully make it work and without too many glitches, I'll say, because there's going to be concerns with people no matter what.
So Blake, they're pretty they're pretty used to having done that, right?
Oh, Mellows?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they do it in a lot of towns.
They really do. They do it in Newburyport. They do it in Merrimack. They do it in quite a few. They're used to it, and they sent out for the barrels to be made already. A town emblem's going to be put on it, like I think everyone's aware of. We recommend that you put not your name on it, but we recommend that you put your address on it. People were concerned, one of the questions, if it's stolen. If you put your address on it, we recommend, because when you do leave town, the barrel stays with the house. And we're gonna have to make that very clear to realtors and be very informative about that.
Do they have GPSs on them? I remember him saying that some of them have GPSs on them.
They do. The real purpose of the GPS, I'll be honest with you, yes, there is, Glenn, there's a GPS, but the real purpose of the GPS is when he hires a company to put them on each individual, say driveway, wherever, it marks where they put it, so they can't say that, they never received it. They're not going to drive around town trying to find stolen trash barrels, I don't believe.
Be a big black market with West Newbury trash barrel.
Glenn,
Yeah.
I'm going to use the GPS and send my trash over to your house.
Hey, Blake, you say change, but sometimes change is good, and I think this change is good for the town. So it's not a negative change. This is a positive change.
I think it is too, Glenn. And I mean, it's saving us approximately $20,000 a year annually. You know what I mean? So in a 5-year contract, it's $100,000. And I told someone that, and then they started to divide it up by household and this and that, and told me it's only this much savings. Well, it was the first time I kind of got screamed at for being, I don't want to call myself a politician, but for saving the town money. It was the first time I got yelled at for that. But you know what? It's a new age, so I can accept it.
The other thing is there's going to be less when it's a windy day like today. There's going to be a lot less recycling, blowing out of bins. We already have enough trash blowing around. This will cut down on actual trash getting out of people's barrels.
I agree with you. And to answer your question earlier, Archie, I know you sent me an email. We did. I know that's water over the dam, but we did send out for 3 people for this trash. We're talking back in 2019, we sent out to Wheeler Brader, Waste Management, and JRM. And Waste Management wanted nothing to do with us. Unfortunately, they were full. JRM, they wanted a 10-year contract if we did like we're doing with Mellows, where the barrels are included. You know what I mean? So we did reach out, and we got various response, but Mellows was definitely they were the best. How's that?
Well, money wise, and I would say they're very customer service oriented. That they always come to the town. They've come back when somebody's put it out late. All the little things I don't see somebody else or company doing that they've done for the town and for the residents over the years.
I agree. And hey, Glenn, thanks for the backup tonight. I heard you're not running for selectman again. I'm up for the Board of Health, so if you'd like to come up next year, I'd appreciate it.
For the first time, I was ready. I was ready for you with that flyer, man. I can take a test on it. I thought, honestly, that flyer, you got to get that flyer out. That answers everything.
We're going to immediately, seriously. We were actually, sorry to butt in real quick, it has nothing to do with it. We were going to actually ask if we could see, because the problem is when people do see these letters, let's face it, me, you, anyone on here, they throw them out. We were going to see if we could actually incorporate them with the tax bill, but I don't know where that comes, because extra weight would probably be involved if we put it in with the tax bill.
I don't know about that, Blake, but that's not unique. We've done things like that in the past. Yeah. We've put flyers or whatever it is in with tax bills when we wanted to try to get to people, So
yeah, Blake, I might
this time.
Yeah, right. Blake, I might suggest that you put it in as an insert for the Council on Aging news. Those are the people who are most likely not to use internet. And if they actually got it in the regular mailing that the
Sure.
Council on Aging sends out, then that would be a plus for them.
I will write that down right now and we'll suggest that to Jane. We want to get this out as soon as possible too, because we're pushing very hard, but it's just what we got to get it under control by, maximum July 1st, minimum, June 1st is what we're shooting for. Does anyone else have any other comments, or, I can help out with, well, I hope I can help out with anything else. Am I off the hot seat?
You are.
Sorry,
All right.
actually,
That's your problem. We don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
I do have a question about the
Sure.
revolving fund. Is there, I looked at it today and it seems like, I'm wondering if it would make sense to put some, a little more flexibility in the wording regarding what it could be applied for. For instance, perhaps 5 years from now, we'll be required to do food waste composting.
Right.
I've heard suggestions, that at the state level that's being discussed. So do we want to make sure that we don't have to create another revolving fund when that happens?
The thing is,
I did actually put that, Rick, if you look at the language, I did put in, for revenues, expenses associated with curbside collection of trash, recycling, and food waste.
Oh, okay. I didn't see
So,
that.
no, I heard you the first time, so
Okay.
I went ahead and preemptively took care of that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
and Rick, we also heard you on when you, either you emailed us or this or that. We did put along with a couple of other companies, but a composting company is on our website now. I'm sure, I believe you see that now.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay. We just can't specifically say a company, just like any other town department can't recommend Napa Auto Parts for all your, for all your goods.
Yeah.
So we incorporated that with a couple other people, okay?
Yeah, that's great.
And it seems like the word I'm getting is they actually are getting more and more.
Yeah, no, I've
So-
heard that too. So that's good. Yeah.
So that's all good news, but that's unfortunately the best we could do at this
Yeah.
present time.
No, but that was great. I appreciate that.
Good. All right, great. All right, gentlemen, I know you have better things to discuss than with me, so have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thanks, Blake.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is a discussion to approve and post a warrant for the annual town election. Monday, May 3rd, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Can I have a motion on that?
Yeah, just a second. I'm going to phone that.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay,
second.
seconded. Okay, further discussion? Hearing none. Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
All right, I'll prepare the warrants and have them available for your signature tomorrow.
Okay.
Great.
Our next item is a recommendation from the Chief Procurement Officer, Mr. McCarron, regarding responses to the RFQ and in relation to renting the space at the rentable part of the Page School. So we have put out a request for anyone interested in renting that space, and we have received back the only people that filled out the materials and filled the qualifications were the existing renters, the Children's Castle. So we have gone over their lease, and their option is to approve a new 3-year lease for renting of that space at the Page School. Anyone want to?
We need a motion for that, Archie?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I would move that we.
I prepared a motion in the packet, if you see it.
It's on page 26, Rick.
Okay, sorry. I move that the town enter into a 3-year lease for a portion of the John C. Page School building.
Sorry.
To the Children's Castle, Inc., in accordance with the terms of the lease entitled 2021 to 2024 Children's Castle Lease, and hereby authorize the town manager to execute said lease on behalf of the board.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next is a review of the draft of the annual and special town meeting articles. They are on page
43.
correct. Yes. Okay. So how do we want to do this?
This isn't the night, at least, I mean, you can take it whichever direction you want. I wasn't envisioning tonight being the night that you make recommendations and articles.
Right.
Yeah, just want to keep the board totally current as to the list, which is substantially similar to what you saw about 2 weeks ago. But at this point, it's gone through an additional round or two of wordsmithing with Mike and myself. We filled in a couple of numbers where we knew them. As you see, there's still a couple of articles that we don't have numbers yet. So what you have before you is working drafts. I think they're in pretty good shape at this stage in the process, I think. But I think in addition to whatever else you may want to talk about under this agenda item, I do think it would be helpful if you say, of these articles, which ones would you like, for instance, to invite the sponsor to appear before you or get more detailed information? So, for example, I know with the wetlands bylaw, we had that conversation and we talked about inviting the Concom. They'll be here at a future meeting. They were going to be here tonight, but they have their own meeting tonight. And in fact, they have a public hearing tonight on that very bylaw. So it obviously didn't make sense to try to get that done. But that would be really helpful just for my own work planning and communications, is if you flag those articles that you'd like more detail. And in prior packets, you've got some detail on some, but which ones would you like to invite the sponsors? And because as I work with the FinCom, I'll be putting together detailed backup for probably not every last article. Some of them are pretty routine, but for anything that's new or different, FinCom will get a detailed backup. So as you look ahead to your next, meeting, 2 meetings, potentially 3 meetings, what are the ones that you would like to really delve into in depth?
Angus, on that note, I had one that I think we need to Article 15, which seems just sort of the whole, I understand what the money's for and everything. It's just that, is that the way we're going to be doing this one forward? We haven't actually borrowed the money on a permanent basis yet. How is Article 15? Do we need to work on that one?
We do. In fact, I've been talking with Stephanie about how we might not need that article at all this year, because as you said, we haven't borrowed the money on either a permanent or a short-term basis. Last June, the voters did authorize $85,000 for debt service. I reread that motion the other day. It did not have a sunset date. So that $85,000 is still reflected when we report the CPC balances. That's still reflected as being encumbered. So we might not need this article this year. I put it on here because I didn't want to not include it and later find out we need it. But that's one aspect that we're looking at. The second would be, I would want to circle back with our financial advisor, Hilltop Securities, to see if they continue to think $85,000 is the right amount for a year of debt service. It was when we did this, but that would be two areas that we're going to continue to look at, but you may have other questions as well. But in answer to your question, once the debt's issued, you will see an article substantially identical to this for the life of the borrowing.
That was one of the things. The town meeting will vote on it every year, but if we don't pay it, we'll still have to, if it was turned down, we'd still have to pay it.
That's correct. Yeah, so as much as anything, in addition to just being a clear, paper trail on authorizing the payment of debt service, it's also a good reminder to town meeting that continues to be a current obligation once the debt's issued.
The article by citizens petition, should that be in the special or the annual town meeting?
I had that conversation with Mike, and the answer is annual because the signature threshold is very different for an annual than for a special. So the number of signatures submitted was sufficient to get on the special town meeting warrant. It was not sufficient to get on the annual town meeting warrant.
No, the other way around, Angus.
Oh, right.
So the threshold,
Right.
is it 10 for the annual town meeting and 40 for the special? Are those the thresholds?
No, it's 10 for the annual, 100 for a special.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
So another one that we can just reserve to think about is Article 21, and at the same time, Article 8, which is sort of discretionary, like what can we safely do and not burn through all our free cash? How do we want to handle those two items? So I suppose we have to wait until certain things have the budget as a whole, but those are two other ones that I think we have to discuss.
Yeah, if I could speak briefly to 21, and just for those watching from home, that's a draft article that would vote to transfer from free cash the sum, a certain unnamed sum to reduce the FY22 tax rate. Back when the Selectmen approved budget direction for this current budget season, at my recommendation, the board had included language to say if there's going to be a proposed free cash transfer to offset the next year tax rate, to at least consider doing that in the spring. And I think it's good to consider it, but I also think that in considering it, we may decide it makes sense to do it in the fall, as has been the pattern in the last few years, for the basic reason that there's so much information that we don't know in the spring about new growth, assessed values, as well as non-tax revenues. We don't know any of that until the fall town meeting. So if the intent is to arrive at a certain tax rate, we can't do that until the fall because we don't have that. We don't have valuations and new growth and non-tax revenues. So I think it's good to help to talk about it this spring, because what we don't want to do is, not even talk about it and then next fall be like, oh, a surprise, we're going to recommend this. I think we ought to look at it, but I think as we look at it, we may feel that the fall is the better time to do that, in which case you could just take this off.
Good.
Angus.
And as for the OPEB, I think that's very subjective, kind of what's the right amount. That might be a good topic for the next investment policy committee meeting, since they're starting to delve more into that topic.
Yeah. Angus, just also is that, there's no prohibition against having an article in the spring and an article in the fall with regard to reducing the tax rate. If, you have a projection of what you want, but if that projection is inaccurate, you can always change it in the fall.
That's for sure.
You said you
Glenn,
would change it. Would you?
You have any, yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't, if you had chosen a higher number in the spring, you wouldn't reduce it in the fall, though, would you, or could you?
You could.
Because the tax bills wouldn't have gone out yet. Is that correct?
Right, we wouldn't have determined it. If you were thinking about doing that, then I would just suggest that from an accounting point of view, that you wouldn't appropriate that until after the fall town meeting. Is that how it would be done, Stephanie?
It's reported in two different lines on the tax rate recap. There's one place where it says state any amount appropriated within the fiscal year to reduce the subsequent year tax rate. And then the line right below that says report any amount appropriated since the beginning of the fiscal year. So I think it would be a little clumsy to
reduce
over, let's say you authorize 200,000 in the spring, and then in the fall you decide you only wanted 180. I don't know exactly how you do that. I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, I wouldn't
It'd be
recommend
possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. Because there's a nice, and Mike, this, it's really helpful when there's a vote at town meeting to have a clear, like you can connect that specific figure.
That's true.
Subsequent reporting and DOR, it's when numbers start changing that it becomes harder, especially in the out years, to follow the trail.
What did I do?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
The only one, when did you say Concom was coming in? Because I know they're having their public hearing about this tonight. That's I want to delve into that because I'm just not sure why they're changing the regular. What prompted this? Seems to me when reading it, they're going to be stricter now than even the Massachusetts regulations. So I kind of want to know why. So
Yeah, Glenn, I sent a bunch of questions and a lot of them I said why on. So we're going to do that.
Okay, good, because we're really strict now, and what's prompting this? We have to, homeowners, like somebody said to me, we have to go through hoops now. Well, what prompted this?
I think part of it was the 40B and just ways of that was the inciting thing, I think.
In terms of the timing, Glenn, yeah, it's important to get that scheduled as soon as we can. We had the goal had been to have it tonight. Obviously, with their hearing tonight, that wasn't going to work. So the way I left it with Bert is that they'll have their hearing tonight. I don't know if they'll close it tonight or if they'll continue it, but they will take into account, among whatever other comments they received, the comments that Archie put in, and so they may have changes to the bylaw that come out of tonight's hearing. Who knows? But it seemed like it would make sense to get them in front of this board with whatever is going to be the proposed bylaw, taking into account any changes they may make coming out of the hearing. But I think, ideally that would be on the next agenda. The problem is I think we're on this cycle now. Actually, I don't know if we are because I don't think they're every 2 weeks, right? I think Concom's just twice a month, whereas this board's twice every 2 weeks.
Yeah, so it might be an off week. But
so
no,
if we could get them in next meeting, that would be the
I saw
best.
the public hearing for the bridge is the first Monday in April, which means that they're going to be off site. Will then be off cycle. So So it looks like it's every 2 weeks. for
Yeah,
us.
so I expect they'd be in 2 weeks from tonight would be the goal.
Good. No, and I think it's good timing to have them in after they have their public hearing, because you're right, it could change. So why,
Right.
like, ask questions or concerns when it might not even be in the final proposed.
Yeah, Archie has some really good questions in his comments there.
Okay, that would be the only one I would really want to start diving into. So that's it.
Okay, so are we good on that? I was gonna add, I saw Casey was on there, because this is a outdoor meeting, are we biting off more than we can chew? There's a lot of articles here, that's all.
And I will say, I did just send her the draft warrants in the last 45 minutes. So sorry, Casey, I didn't send those earlier. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the email I sent you or not, but it occurred to me I had not sent them to her. So I did just earlier this evening.
What does anyone else think? We've got, so how many, 28 on the annual, is that right? Oh,
I'm dark.
Yeah, 28 on the annual, and it looks like 15 on the special.
Yes, I think it's quite a few articles. Our experience last spring was that we did have more than the normal quorum, so we didn't have a problem with that. And the meeting went pretty effectively, but the method that we used for having people speak was a bit time consuming, having them come up to the fence and whatever. And, I still maintain that there is a use for the consent agenda for things that are just really routine items that can be dispensed with. And so if there's a concern that we have too many articles on the warrant, which I think we do, we could consider adopting a consent agenda, which would expedite things quite a bit. But I haven't seen, as Angus just said, I haven't seen the articles, so I really don't know what we could possibly put together in that way. But that's being used by many, many towns to try to make the meeting flow better and not have it drag out endlessly.
Casey, has there been have you heard from any other towns in the opposite direction that people are saying, well, you're lumping everything together, we can't really see, we're losing transparency when we're voting for like these big articles all with several different things in them?
Archie, I think the thing here is that many towns have used this routinely for years. And so those towns and those voters are completely used to it and they don't have any problem with it. And if there are articles that are put together into a consent agenda, that doesn't mean that you don't have any recourse, because there's always the possibility to have a motion to remove something from the consent agenda so that it can be discussed, just like any other article. You're not just stuck with what's put in the consent agenda. But if you have articles that are routine, that year after year, it's the same thing, there's never any discussion, no one ever votes against it, it's just a regular routine matter of government, and you can lump them together into a single motion that just dispenses with all that, it really does expedite the meeting. Now, West Newbury hasn't used one. So you're right. I mean, people might say, oh, what kind of nefarious trick is this to try to, get us to vote things in that we haven't had a chance to discuss? And that's a valid question. I mean, we just haven't used it, but so many towns have used it routinely over the years that once people get used to it, it's just a way to shorten the meeting. If there are things that you just aren't going to have a discussion, that are just so routine that, you just do it year after year after year, why go through line by line by line and the whole business with it if you can just lump them all together? I think it's a valid way, especially since our meetings have seemed to me over the years to have gotten longer and with more articles. And so and people don't want to be there forever. It's obvious that people want to just get the business done. And then when there are things that require a lot of discussion, they want to discuss it. And that's absolutely what we need to do. But if there are things that we really don't need to discuss, I would recommend trying it. I mean, if there's a huge hue and cry about it, then everything just comes off the consent agenda. That's the way it works. Somebody says, I want to take this thing off the consent agenda, it's gone.
Mm-hmm. So I have a couple of questions. Is it okay, Archie? It's fine.
Yeah.
So I think we should try it too. Baby steps, maybe put some on there. I would agree with Casey. Now, do the selectmen decide which ones get to be lumped together in the consent agenda? Who gets that to determine that? I guess us, and it's our warrant.
That goes, that varies from town to town. Basically, I think that the best way to do that is that the moderator and the selectmen meet together to decide what things can be best put on a consent agenda, so that nobody's being forced into something they don't agree with or whatever. It's a mutual agreement that these particular things are just so non-controversial that we can do this without really damaging the town meeting. But other towns, it's totally the moderator's call. Other towns, it's totally the selectmen's call. It just really depends upon what local tradition has been of how they decide what to put on there. But if we're going to try this, I would recommend that we do it mutually. That we sit down and talk about what things are amenable to this kind of a motion. And then it does become my problem at the meeting to explain to people that this is a way to expedite things, that this is a way to lump together items that just really don't typically get a lot of discussion. But if there is a reason that you want to remove something from this consent agenda, that will happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, just don't put the septic loan revolving question on there. That's a big discussion.
Yes.
I would suggest, I think we should, my 2 cents would be that I would go along with Casey's recommendation and just try something. Maybe not put too many on time, just so people see that it really works well, and then we'll be able to use it in the future and get our feet wet. But to the point about all the articles, we need with the town. I mean, if we got this far, we need the articles. So I understand the corona, or I understand the limitations we have, and we have to do it outside. But at some point, we have to stop pushing it down the road and do it also. So this could be a good year to do this consent thing, but let's not, like we did last time, say, okay, take that article off, take that article off, take that article off. It's time that we need to, because by May, I think this state and this country is going to be a lot different. I mean, probably the restrictions are going to be cut back, that, and a lot of people are going to be vaccinated, that we probably could have this indoors, maybe, as long as we have a certain like masks and stuff like that. But I'm not saying we do articles, and we need to kind of move on now. By the time these are in place, which would be in July 1st.
Casey, do other towns put, so do they put, say, DPW kind of items together, or money items versus non-money items, or is there any reason to how things are lumped together, or no?
It varies a lot, Archie. You have to, really look at it from town to town, but my sense is no, it's not just all the items from a particular group or anything. It's basically items that are just very non-controversial, that that people just say, we do that every year. What's the point of taking these up one by one when we can just put them into one big motion to adopt these articles as written? And it could be anything. They could all come from one certain thing, but they also could come from various things where, just in our experience with town meeting, we know that these are things that people just expect, that they're not really anything that anybody wants to discuss particularly. But if someone does want to discuss it, that option is still open. You can still have that motion, that article removed from the consent agenda, and it will be taken up on its own.
I mean, okay, let's see what we can do about this. Like I would say, why don't you take a look at them and
I'm sorry, I haven't looked at them.
no, I mean in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a look at them and see if you can put, 5 or 6 or 8 together and send it over to Angus, and then we'll go from there.
I'm happy to do that. I think it's a good way to sort of streamline things so that we don't have so many things on the warrant. I think it's a good idea. And the towns that use it have no trouble with it whatsoever.
Now, there are we'd have to change some of the ways that we write our warrants though, because what you're suggesting is that in our warrants, a lot of times the motion, as you know, is the one that governs, and it includes the funding source, it includes sunset clauses. And if you have a concession, bunched together, we won't know, from what funding source, from what place it is, unless, I guess, the article itself is very specific as to those terms.
You're right, Mike, and I'm not prepared to address that question right now, so I'm not going to. But the way that this works is that the consent agenda is a single motion. It's really a motion to adopt what's included in articles number blah 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 blah. And so when you write the articles, yes, I think you do have to be there. There has to be a certain amount of specificity in the way that the article is worded, because it's the same thing as when some towns, a lot of towns actually, have the option where instead of having someone read out a whole motion, they just say something like, I move the article, which basically says whatever it says in the article, that's what my motion is. And we haven't done that. And I actually don't like that, because it really does sort of obviate the possibility of some kind of an amendment or something like that. It's just, and you're anticipating that everybody is reading the articles carefully and understands everything in the article. And, I really don't like that idea, to just say I move the article. But basically that's what this does. It takes a bunch of articles that are pretty formulaic, puts them together in a single motion, and says, I move the article.
So Casey, when you have a consent agenda, do you actually read the multiple articles all, or what would have otherwise been multiple articles all together as one article? Or do you just not even bother to read them? You just refer to the printed material?
Okay, well, this is a situation, Rick, where, comes up time and again. Okay. The motion is to adopt what's presented in the articles, which is like a multiple group of, I move the article.
Yeah.
So instead of reading each one individually and voting on each one individually, you're saying, we're going to take this group of articles, at this set of articles as a group. We're going to suspend the need to have a separate motion on every article. We're just saying, we're adopting a motion to pass these items the way it's written in the article.
So you would make a motion to adopt Articles 12, 13, 17, and 22.
Right. You adopt it as written, right?
Okay.
Right. And if you want to do this, I mean, I do. There has been a lot of discussion about this since COVID, because people are really trying to figure out a way to get all the business done that they need to have done without having the meeting drag out more than it needs to, because this is an issue. You want to get it over and done with. And so anything that you can do to try to speed things up is a worthwhile thing. But but on the other hand, towns that have not traditionally used consent agendas, and there are a lot of them, we're not alone in this, have a lot of questions about how do you do this. And when this has come up on my list feed about, okay, I'm interested in this consent agenda idea, how would I do this? Well, the answers are all over the place, because the towns that do this have adopted their own method of doing it. And the people in those towns are used to it. So they know exactly what's happening. And if they have an objection to something being included in that consent agenda, they know that they can say, no, I don't want Article 5 included in there. And if somebody objects, it's gone. It's not, there's no vote or anything like that. It's just like, if you object to having it included in there, we'll take it up separately. So it's, they're not really at risk in terms of, being railroaded or anything like that.
I guess from a sort of a transparency standpoint or an easy visibility standpoint, it would make sense, if you have a warrant and as we have, and articles are sequential. If you were to use sequential articles in the consent agenda motion, that would make sense just from a standpoint of people being able to more easily reference. They could glance at the booklet and see what those were, as opposed to.
That's a very good point. And those towns that have traditionally used this over the years, a long time, do exactly that. They take all the articles that they think they're going to put into a consent agenda, and they make those articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, that's just it. The first 8 articles are in the consent agenda, and we're just getting rid of those. And they don't have to have any relationship to each other at all. They're just things. They're just things. The only relationship is that they're sort of non-controversial things that just get done year after year. So, for example, you wouldn't put in there any kind of a major appropriation at all. I mean, that would be a ridiculous thing in there. But to hear to give whatever advice you need to the water commissioners. One of my favorite ones.
Whoa. Hold on there.
That's your favorite one?
No, it's that septic revolving one that we've been doing since since Title V, that septic revolving fund. No, but I think I agree. And we have a very educated, well-informed town meeting, I think, members that show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think this will fly. I mean, people do their homework and they come for specific things. And we all know, I think I think Archie said for you to look at it, I think we all need to look at the articles and then come to that meeting, because we all know which ones are going to get discussed, and we all know which ones, we could try it and just, let's not put too many in there, but let's at least try it.
Yeah, I think, I agree, Glenn. I mean, start with sort of baby steps, pick ones that are just really no brainers. that, there's never any discussion on this. It just goes time after time after time. And you get people used to the idea that you can just get rid of like 5 articles at once by just putting them into this one motion. Let's vote those. And then, the people that the town meeting members who come also don't want to be there for the rest of their lives. I mean, they want to get it done. So, there is a certain sentiment among the people that come to, get this show on the road and let's do our business and get out of here. So I think that it has a good chance of being received well. And if it's not, we don't do it anymore. I mean, it's, we're not stuck with it forever. It's just a way to keep from having too much stuff on the agenda for a town meeting. And the 20, what did you say, 28 on the annual and 15 on the special? That's a huge chunk of stuff. And some of them are not going to be uncontroversial. I mean, I don't know exactly what's on there. I haven't looked at it yet, but I know about some of the stuff that's going on. And there are going to be things that are going to require a good bit of discussion.
Okay. So when do we want to try and put these together? Let's just think about that. So our next meeting or?
Yeah, let's
Next
keep
meeting's
this
on
as
the
a standing.
22nd?
No, the next meeting's on the 29th.
29th, okay.
So yeah, I'd say by all means, let's keep the warrants on there 2 weeks from tonight. Casey, who again, I apologize, I just sent those earlier tonight, but you'll have a chance to go through those in more detail and, get me and Mike any kind of copy editing or any other comments, of course. And yeah, let's, I think, we're making good progress on these draft warrants. So let's keep it on for the 29th and, maybe give some thought to which ones might lend themselves to that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to at least look at it. We can always decide, well, it was a nice idea, but we don't like it.
Well, the one thing we don't want it to be is someone gets up and then complains about how we're trying to railroad things through and makes the thing end up being longer than what.
Yeah. And you know who that's going to be? It's the guy that lives on Middle Street. He might be an assessor. He's going to vote against everything.
I don't want to be quoted on this at all, but my understanding, and you caught me unprepared for this particular discussion, although I have looked into it a lot. But my understanding is if somebody objects to something being on that consent agenda, it just comes off. We don't discuss that. It's just gone.
What do you mean by gone?
Okay,
it's off the consent agenda and it becomes its own article.
Motion, which the consent agenda motion is
disappear.
that we take up articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as a group in a consent agenda, and we're gonna vote on them all as a group. And somebody stands up and says, "I object. I want Article 4 removed from the consent agenda." Article 4 is removed.
For just one person?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just,
like the line item budget.
right. You put a hold.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if somebody objects to every single one,
Actually, that's a good way of saying it.
if somebody objects, then we're back to, picking them up one by one. We haven't lost a thing except time. I do, however, want to double check on that one because it's been a while since I looked at all this consent agenda stuff, and I really need to I need to just double check that is exactly the case. But I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay.
It just takes one person to say, no, I don't want it on there, and it's gone.
Casey, ultimately, it comes down to, do you think that you can explain to town meeting this new concept and have people understand what it's really accomplishing in less time than it would take to handle the individual articles. We could end up in a half-hour debate over the.
That's good. That's
To
just true.
To a certain extent, Rick, it depends on who's at the meeting, as you know.
Right.
I mean, there are always going to be some people there who don't like anything I do, and they're going to think I'm trying to pull a fast one. So, I mean, yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And all I can say is I think I can explain it cogently and say, you know, this is not some sort of an end around to try to remove your rights from you. This is a way to expedite the meeting so that things that have traditionally over the years received no discussion have been just passed without discussion, lumped together to dispense with them so that we can spend our time more effectively discussing the things that really do need discussion.
Yeah. I'm good with giving it a go. You know, I just I had to pose that question. You know.
Yeah, no, it's just, hey, you know, I'm willing to give it a try, and
Yeah.
if I go down in flames, so what? You know,
You didn't lose anything. You didn't lose
I didn't
anything.
lose a thing, right? I'm just trying to move things along and help people out. But over the years, I'm sure you've all noticed that, you know, when we get some of these long, drawn out discussions with some of these people that just cannot sit down, and I'm looking out at the town as a whole, and I'm seeing people going, you know, like, would you please move this along? I mean, how can we get out of this mess we're in with this person that's just insisting on going on and on and on? And, you know, we all know who those people are. They just, you know, they like to hear themselves talk. So I think that I think there'll be a lot of sentiment in favor of something like this. Unless we tried to put something on there that really was controversial. I mean, we have to be careful, you know, at first we have to put stuff that's really not controversial on there.
Yeah, we won't do that. Yeah, so we should. So you think next meeting then we can?
Yeah, I will take a look at the proposed warrant and see which ones come to my attention that might be, you know, amenable to this kind of thing. And I'll send on a list of things that I think, well, this might be a good one. I'll send it to Angus. He can pass it on to you. And then when we have, and if you want to talk about it, I don't know about open meeting law and stuff, but if you want to talk about it before the next selectmen's meeting, we can do that too.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. So are any other articles that we wanted to, as Angus said, get further comment on? I think we're pretty good. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the proposed FY22 operating budget. Angus, you want to, any highlights or anything you want to say about this?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share.
Okay.
I didn't do slides this year, but I would just start by saying that the guiding, at least from a financial standpoint, the guiding directive from the Selectmen's policy direction voted back on December 14th was to prepare a FY22 operating budget that limited the increase in non-school items to 1.5%. And that was a little bit of a departure from prior years where the policy direction has focused on estimated tax rate. But because that relies on some assumptions on new growth and assessed values and revenues, non-tax revenues, it was agreed, and I think it makes good sense to set a direction based on an objective number like kind of bottom line growth. So I'm pleased to say that I was able to put together a budget with a non-tax increase of 1.5%. I'm sorry, non-tax, a non-school increase of 1.5%. The overall proposed change in FY22 would be a 3.4% increase. That includes the schools. I do want to say, which I know I said this when I sent it out to you over the weekend, it is important to know that when you see that education budget, and I'll just go to the later page where we get more detail. You'll probably remember that last year we had budgeted the full amount of the Pentucket debt service, but we also separately appropriated from school stabilization a certain amount. And what ended up happening, because this was the first time we'd actually done something like this, was we ended up double budgeting for that. And so we went back to the fall town meeting to reduce the approved budget for the Pentucket capital assessment because a certain share of that is paid from school stabilization and therefore doesn't need to be raised from taxation. So when I say that the school increase is 5.1%, it's important that you understand that is true, but this number I've highlighted here for Pentucket capital, the actual assessment, if you look at the proposed school budget, is about $397,000 more than the figures you see here. So I just want to make sure, I know that I probably made things more confusing, but I just wanted to try to be clear that while it's a 5.1% school, in reality it's more than that, but it's offset by the anticipated town meeting action on school stabilization. So those articles, the school stabilization transfer and the omnibus budget, need to be considered kind of in sequence, because if town meeting were not to appropriate those funds, we would need to put those funds back into the operating budget. So I'll go back and talk about the whole.
So Angus, so which way? Let's think about that right now. So should we do the article first before this?
I think so. Because then we could propose because otherwise if we do the budget first and then we take up the article and the article doesn't pass, or even let's say we finish the budget and there's a lightning storm that comes in, we all need to run off the field and we have to suspend town meeting. But if for whatever reason the article doesn't get passed, then we'd have to go back and amend the budget that we just voted, which would be really clumsy. I think it would probably be better to start with the school stabilization transfer, and then in the event that either didn't pass or ended up passing at a different amount than was proposed, then we would need to have those figures at the ready so we could propose an amended budget number when that came up.
And remember, Angus, that the money from the school stabilization fund is a 2/3 vote.
That's the other thing, because we had talked with our DOR rep last summer about the logistics of how do we do this. And she had said, well, could you put it as the same article? And Mike correctly pointed out that there's a different quantum of vote for the budget approval than there is for the stabilization transfer. So anyhow, I don't want to get sidetracked. I'd like to, I could just start at the back at the top with the budget, but I just wanted to make sure that no one feels that I'm understating what the budget increase is, because if you put that 397,000 back in, that 3.4% would be, probably a good 3% higher than that. But that's the whole point of the school stabilization transfer anyhow, is to reduce the impact on the taxpayer. So that's what we're doing. So just to kind of start with the top line of the budget, this a similar format that you've seen in past years. You have on page 1 a summary that shows all of the different departments, what the prior to completed years 19 and 20 actual spending was, what the current year budget is, what my proposed budget is, and what the change is from current. And then on the the following pages, you have a little more detail on the prior years. You still have the expended, but then you've got, there was the final budget approved in June, the amended budget approved in October, which in most cases is the same, but in some lines does differ. Then you also have the year to date. And as of these year to date numbers, which was 68.5%, that's a good kind of metric. You can see where each department is kind of relative to year to date, whether it's ahead of or behind. You also have this column is department head / board commission committee. And then you have the town manager proposed budget. So in many cases, you'll see these columns are the same. In a couple of cases, you'll see they're different. So you can ask me about those. And then the proposed change corresponds to the town manager proposed budget. So to go back to the kind of top line, there's a proposed, what I'll do is jump to the changes that are outside of like the 2% range and just speak briefly to those, Archie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the selectmen proposed.
Or even 5%. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So selectmen proposed increases really entirely driven by, I'm recommending in this budget that we contract for meeting minutes. Right now we have some operating budget to do some minutes, but it's been, it's very tough. We really don't have the staff time to do minutes in-house. And so we really do rely on that outside vendor. So as you know, we've been through a number of different vendors. We've found someone who does a great job and has actually agreed to a reduced price for next year relative to what we're paying this year, if we can provide the whole year, as opposed to right now, it's kind of, we decide each meeting how we're going to get the minutes done. So that's what drives, it's a percentage increase. It's a large percent, but it's not a big thing on the dollar side. And the finance department is an increase really intended to shore up the staffing and give us more dedicated support staffing. Really primarily administrative is really the biggest gap, that we really don't have any administrative staffing at this point, which is very challenging. The Board of Assessors proposed reduction is entirely driven by the turnover in personnel that occurred in the current fiscal year. But the budget I've prepared would continue to fund that position at full-time hours, even though right now that's not the structure. But my proposal is intended to preserve flexibility if we get into FY22 and decide that we want to revert to full-time. This would preserve that option. Special counsel, this is, as you know, a fairly, newer item just in the last couple of years' budgets. And so we're still trying to find our feet in terms of what's the right budgeted amount. And I'm going to jump to the detail on that because it's helpful to see the year to date. It's definitely, I think we all understand it's a necessary resource at this point. It's become invaluable on any number of issues, particularly labor, but not just labor. So if you look at FY20 expended, it was almost 14,000. The initial approved budget for the current year was 12,500. We added 10,000 to that in the fall town meeting because we knew some issues coming our way, which sure enough have played out. And year to date, and again, we're not, I think the last invoice wasn't that long ago. It was probably three or 4 weeks ago. So this number is pretty current. You can see where it's been I think a very great return on investment in terms of the dollars expended. I don't know that 18,000 is the right amount. It feels like a reasonable amount that gives us kind of enough, cover or not cover. We're covered for the expenses that we might need for next year. As you know, there's a lot of variables on when we engage outside counsel and how lengthy or how intensive that engagement may be. For some of the assignments, it's been high value, but actually very limited on the billing. It has not taken a lot of time to get us some help.
Angus, that seems, I'm like the year to date and the amount of assistance we've got. It seems like good value.
I couldn't agree more. I'm really very pleased with the billing is very lean relative to the value. The next department with the big change relative to, like outside the norm is in the town clerk's office. This is something I'm proposing and have worked closely with Mike, and Mike's in full agreement. As you know, we had a retirement of the assistant town clerk. That position was budgeted at just 16 hours a week. The work of that office is quite substantial. And because of the, staffing constraints over the years, some of the work that often is done in other towns by the clerk's office is done by the finance office in our town. And so the nub of the proposal is to make that assistant town clerk position full-time, which would allow it to both improve the, Mike's efficiency because he'd have more support, but also to take some of the functions out of the finance office and back into the town clerk's office to do with like committee appointments, website updates and trainings to boards and committees on website, the town report as well. So that's where you see that increase is basically driven by the proposal to create a full-time assistant town clerk position. Board of registrars, that's a bit of a reduction because the current year is higher because it was a presidential election year. So we feel we can reduce that. Harbor Master percentage-wise looks as a big increase. It's really not. If you'll recall back, that's an MOU with Salisbury, and at this point we don't have a proposed contract with Salisbury for FY22. I've been in correspondence with the Harbor Master for really at least since the beginning of the year, if not longer. They haven't yet proposed a number, so I put in a placeholder, but there's a rationale behind it. 2,000 of that would cover that additional level of service that we got beginning in FY20, which is the weekend patrols. That added about $2,000 annually. And then the balance, we've budgeted typically $6,000 for the Clean Vessel Act pump out, but that's 75% reimbursable by the state under our Clean Vessel Act contract. So the idea of 3,500 is 2,000 for the patrols and 1,500 for the net expense for the clean vessel pump out. But there would be additional expense. My proposal would be that continue to be funded out of the waterways fund, as it has been for the last 2 fiscal years.
Is there sort of carryover money still available from that?
There is. Yeah, I don't know, Stephanie, if you have the current balance on waterways, but there's still a good balance in there. I don't have that number right at hand.
That's okay.
Okay. So then jumping down, veterans, the reason this went up, you may remember, if you look at the amended budget of the current year relative to the initial proposed, actually, that's not on here. Anyhow, long story short, we became aware a short time before town meeting last spring that a new benefit, a new benefited veteran moved into town, whose particulars would be costly. And so we, at that time, on the advice of our veterans agent, we built in a substantial increase. So let's look at, let's see. So we had budgeted, why am I not seeing that? I guess it must have been before we closed out the warrant initially. But the way the veterans is set up is we pay a known amount to Northern Essex Veteran Services to serve as our veterans agent. So that's this specific, 21,695. That's a known amount. We've gotten that assessment for next year. That is what it's going to be. This next amount, the other assessments, that's where we pay the veterans benefits from. And that's really a wild card because we don't know going into the year what it's going to be. It's been pretty consistent over the years. We did think we were going to see a big jump in the current fiscal year because of someone who moved into town. As it turns out, they lived here a very short period of time, like a very short period. So it didn't end up costing us much at all. So that's why if you look at the budgeted versus actual, we're very low. So I think I'm comfortable significantly reducing that. And I think the 7,400 I've left in there still gives us, plenty of cover if there was to be a change in terms of actual veterans receiving benefits. I checked with Bob Janes, our veteran services rep, and he felt comfortable with the amount in the soldier's grave expense that's paid out, and typically 4 payments to each of the different cemetery trustees groups. I did propose to bulk up the Memorial Day expense, which has traditionally only been, it's been about $650. I did propose to increase that by about $1,000 in just having, managed, one of these parades. There are things that do cost money. I think $650 is a pretty thin budget to run a great parade, but that's something that's a change. Let's see, we get to recreation. Recreation is going to be a really difficult line to budget. At this point, I have not yet received a proposal from the Park and Rec Commission. So that's the one area in the whole budget where you'll see blanks in the department head or board proposed budget. They are actively working on it. They've met twice in the last 3 weeks or so, and they have another meeting coming up in about a week and a half. And they're really working hard at that, but they haven't got me a number yet. So I had to kind of, I had to get something in there. So this is one that I do expect to generate some real discussion as it should with FinCom, because there's a number of variables here. One being, what are they going to generate in non-tax revenues? And right now they're working to formalize and update and make more clear and transparent what the field use fees are going to be for next season. So I would commend them for those efforts to do that, because I think it's really important to do that. But they haven't voted a new fee schedule. The commission hasn't, so they don't know what the fee schedule is going to be. And even if they do vote that, they don't know what the revenues are going to be, because while we all hope things will maybe partly normalize this summer, no one knows what's going to happen. So it's very difficult for the user groups, some of the non-town rec groups who would normally be paying fees, to project what their enrollment's going to be, what programs they're going to offer, what revenues they're going to be able to absorb in terms of paying for field use fees. So there's a number of variables on the revenue side with recreation. We also know that the costs have gone up substantially because of the porta potties, both the change in vendor as well as the increased frequency of cleaning because of COVID. So what I proposed is a couple of changes. I proposed to, right now in the rec salaries and wages, this line basically pays for field kind of labor, and it's only in the current year's budget at $11 an hour. And so I proposed to increase that wage rate to, I believe I put that to minimum wage of $12.75, but keeping the same number of hours. I think that's the change I made there that brought that from $1,800 to $24.45. On the rec expenses, this is kind of a placeholder, but I think it's in the ballpark of what I would recommend. Is largely driven by the increase is largely driven by the porta potties. And I think, I'd like to see the commission get to a point where user fees are offsetting more of that expense because of COVID, and we're headed into a summer that's got so many unknowns. I don't want to, get into a situation like we did last year where the costs greatly exceed the budgeted expense, because if those non-tax revenues don't materialize, if we're going to have porta potties, someone's got to pay for them, and they are costly. And finally, the Action Cove line, I haven't proposed any change there. So moving along, debt service has gone down a bit. That's expected as we continue to pay off retired debt. Essex County retirement assessment went up significantly. It was about 10.1% total, but it falls a bit more heavily on the general fund relative to water because of how that cost is apportioned. Unemployment.
Angus, with pretty good returns in investment returns for overall in the world this year, why is there such a huge hit? A 10% increase in that budget, in that assessment.
I did correspond with the director, Chuck Costro, back when I got the assessment a couple of months ago. I don't know that I think
I just wondered.
I'll get a better answer on that. And
there's nothing we can. It's academic. There's nothing we can do about it. But it just.
Yeah, we need to understand it better because. So that's I had the same question, and I don't have a good answer to that. Unemployment insurance is kind of a guessing game. In the past, sometimes we wouldn't appropriate anything, and then if we do incur costs, we would then, do a line item transfer. We could do that. I mean, we could zero that out. I wouldn't be averse to that. I don't anticipate that we would have any cost there, but I put in 5,000 as kind of that would clearly more than cover any cost that we would incur there. Group insurance, you'll be very pleased, I'm sure, to see that that's actually proposed to go down. And the reason for that, the primary reason for that, is our Maya health insurance premiums are not going to go up at all. We got a 0% increase for FY22. And on top of that, the Maya board adopted a 1-month rate premium holiday that's going to be credited to both employers and employees. So if you figure on the Maya insurance, which isn't everyone, but it's basically all the non-union, that's effectively an 8.3% decrease next year relative to this year if you hold enrollment steady. In reality, we've got a very detailed spreadsheet that backs up this number that's got our exact head count. And just as I've done each of the budgets I've prepared, I have carried some contingency in there based on scenarios of, let's say, an employee who's currently an individual, becoming a family plan, or let's say, with the instance of the assistant town clerk proposal, if the person, if that ended up being a benefits eligible, person who came in a family plan, the number I proposed would cover those contingencies. So it's not like I cut it to the bone. I did keep in enough for some contingency based on changes that could happen to headcount. And then finally, on insurance and bonds, it's nice to see that number go down a little bit. And that I will take a moment to kind of pat myself on the back a little bit. We've really worked hard on insurance in the couple of years I've been here, really worked very closely with our provider and, updated all the schedules multiple times. And, we're now carrying separate policies for a couple of things like the soldiers and sailors and the rec building. And we're being very, very timely with getting things off our insurance. Once we get rid of, once we sell a vehicle, it's off our insurance. Which you'd think, of course, that happens, but I can tell you it didn't always happen that way. So that's all. So it's nice to see a little bit of a reduction there in the insurance and bonds. And then on the transfers out, I'm continuing to propose that we include $500,000 in the operating budget, which would be put into the capital stabilization fund. So you have all this in front of you, and I provided this to the finance committee as well. And we're working to get meetings scheduled, which I expect our first meeting will in all likelihood be next week. And my guess is we'll have one meeting a week for each of the next 4 weeks, which would bring the budget review to a conclusion right around mid-April.
Angus, I'd like to just make a general comment that this is a great job, and if it wasn't for the two things sort of completely out of our control in terms of what we're spending, the educational assessments and the Essex County pension assessment, you still, I mean, even with that, the non-education budget increase is only 1.5%, and if we didn't have the retirement fund assessment increase of 75,000, the overall budget increase would be basically like 0.5%. It's very, very good.
I definitely want to, extend credit on that with all the department heads. As you go through the line items, you'll see in all but a very few number of examples, you'll see expense budgets that are proposed to be level funded or reduced. There's things that each one individually doesn't necessarily amount to a lot, but when you add it all up, it helps to make that bottom line target. For example, in the inspectional services, you'll see a reduction in the budget. That's because the current year budget, as you may remember from last year, included the purchase of a new plotter. Well, we're going to have a new plotter by the end of June, so we don't need that. So that money's out of the budget. So that kind of, things not just becoming fixed increases, but it was in one time and now it comes out. So, I emphasize that in all of my meetings, in conversations with department heads that, I'm not looking to find tens of thousands of dollars in any one department. But if there's, if you can limit the increase, if you can do a zero increase, if you can find a few bucks here and there, that's all going to help make that bottom line. And you'll see, here's the DPW one up on the screen. Most of those expense lines are proposed at zero increase. And, those that you see increases, once you get the full backup, you'll find, there's reasons for that. So, I think it's been a lot of work to put all this together. And I didn't know until, frankly, this weekend, if I'd hit that 1.5%, I knew it would be a challenge, but I'm pleased to be able to present something that meets that objective.
That's good, Angus. That's a nice piece of work.
Thanks.
So the other final comment is, Angus, other than the rec budget, so things are, we have the assessment from Pentucket. Is the Whittier one just an estimate, or is that real?
That's real. I had it in as a placeholder up until Friday, and on Friday I got the real numbers, and they matched what Kara Cosmace had told me by phone about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it wasn't official until Friday. And so, yeah, the Whittier numbers are real. And she's scheduled to come in, by the way, 2 weeks from tonight to discuss the Whittier budget. So she'll be here.
Good.
Hey. I'm sorry, Glenn. Before, there is one thing I do want to make clear that I should have said earlier. We do have 2 union contracts to end at the end of the current fiscal year, both police and dispatch. So those are not yet settled for FY22. So I did carry, I carried the same cost of living that I've carried for non-union employees of 2%. But it should be clear that number could change. So as you know, the board, we've got a separate warrant article to fund unbudgeted personnel costs. And so that's going to be a question you can address in the next meeting or two of, do you want to try to, get any change into the operating budget, or do you want to look at that article as the way to handle any personnel expenses that may go beyond the approved budget, if any?
So my comment, would the director of that company come in and try to explain that to us? This is one thing past. And Mike, we even tried, didn't we look into, Archie, you were on, I think, right? We looked to try to do our own investments from that money, because they invest so poor, they get so bad returns, and we were doing much better with our investments. Is there any way we can have this guy come in, or do they just, obviously they just bill us with no real, understanding why?
My guess is they'd be happy to send somebody, and I guess we'd reserve judgment on how useful that would be. But I think we should invite someone. They do have new leadership there. In the last couple of years, Chuck Costro is the director. He started right around when I began here, and I know at least he's trying to do things. So I think we should invite him, or a different rep, if he's not available, a different rep. I think that would be really good.
The trouble is I don't know, just to pick a number, we're 0.5% of their total number of retirees. So we're just rounding error. They don't.
Yeah, but it's still a $75,000 increase to us.
I know,
but means something. With everybody else's 401ks have gone through the roof.
It's hard to figure. So
I don't understand it.
Angus, I would say it doesn't have to take an hour, but if someone could come in for 15 minutes, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Right. And with the Zoom, it's actually it's a lot less of a commitment for someone to come to one of our meetings. They don't need to.
I mean, the FinCom's got to want to ask it. I mean, somebody other than us is going to ask that question. I mean, it seems almost. But Archie, don't you remember us trying to? It was legally, I think Michael before, to see if we could try to do our own.
We tried to. The point is, we cannot get out of this. No, it's very difficult. Like, in other words, could we get out of this and go into the state one rather than the Essex County one? And we looked into that, and it was almost impossible to change. And the other thing is, we wanted to put more money in, and that wasn't allowed either. So that's why
and they wouldn't let us.
Yeah. So that's why we have our other investment account where we have a pension stabilization fund. So where we're putting in 10% of our assessment here into a separate account that is hopefully doing better. But
that would be interesting to see how.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Sorry. That would be interesting to see how ours matches up against theirs.
Right. Angus, did you get an annual report on their performance or anything? Or
yeah, we did. I think either Jenny or Stephanie.
Yeah, but that was like 2019. It wasn't. I looked at it, but it was old.
Okay, I don't have anything more.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on the budget? Angus, like I said before, I think you did a great job, and we're in tough times. We are trying to hold the line.
That's for sure. Thank you. Yeah, so what I'll do is, as you know, with the FinCom meetings, I put together, the full backup, the initial proposed, and so on and so forth. So what I'll do is going forward, I'll just circulate those packets to the selectmen as well. So you'll have all the information before you that's going to the FinCom meetings, and we'll keep updating the year-to-date numbers. I don't know if there was anything in there that you had any questions on, but I included year-to-date expense and revenue reports as well. So we can run those anytime, it's a snap, so. Oh, and I will say that we, Jenny and I have been working on a web page for to add to the town site. And so I will make that live in the morning, and that'll include the proposed budget that was presented tonight. And we'll continue to add materials to that as we could get into the FinCom process, so that people who want to follow the budget process remotely will have access to the documents on the town webpage. So that'll be linked from the town manager page on the website.
People need that tonight, Angus, so they can get to sleep. Okay, our next item is a renewal of our town manager's contract. This would go from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. I would, and we're not going to get into reading all the details, but they are available on the tonight's agenda with tonight's agenda items. There were a few very, very minor changes, but no changes basically in content at all. So I would entertain a motion on this.
Yeah, I'll move that we adopt the contract, the negotiated contract with town manager Angus Jennings for the period of FY22, FY23, and oh no, we're not doing it by fiscal year. I'm sorry, it was dates. My apologies. I've got to get back to that. Yeah, it is FY22, 23, and 24. Is that sufficient?
Second.
Okay, great.
Discussion?
Well, the only discussion I have is that it's been a pleasure to be working with him. I wish we could sew Angus up longer than this, and that would be hopefully future boards him and see where the town was, see where the town is, and hopefully we refine that legislation, the town manager's legislation, a little bit more in the future, so he can even do better and greater things, because I feel that we are restricting his duties and his management ability that we're paying for with this legislation. So I would like to see in the future, a future board really take this up and get it done, because it will only benefit the town. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that.
I would second what Glenn said. The town manager, we forget that this was a big step for the town. Not an experiment really, but kind of an experiment. And I feel we picked the right person from the people that that applied for the job. I feel very Angus is so the public knows Angus is working his heart out to make the town work better. So That's all I can say.
Thanks, Archie. I appreciate that. And I can vouch for that.
And you have to stop having lunch at 5 o'clock at night. So
I always thought he was just intermittent fasting. Oh, he's working and he can't eat?
Further discussion, all in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
And Parker, aye. Thanks, Angus.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have meeting minutes for January, these are all 2021, January 4, February 1, February 11, excuse me, and February 21st. I'd make a motion to approve those.
I'll second, but I do have some questions about a few things.
Go for it.
Okay, see if I can get this.
I did too. Okay, I got one while you're looking on page 73, and these are the minutes of February 1. All the people, all the notations of Paul Fahey should be Paul Savigny.
Yeah, there are four references there, so five references actually between 73 and 74.
Right.
Total of 5 references. Yeah.
What else you got, Rick?
Let me see, on page 74, third paragraph down, where it references a heat filter, that should be a HEPA filter.
Where is that?
Oh, I found it. It's heat filters. Got it.
Paragraph. And hang on, I think I had something else here.
Oh, I had one. When we had the discussion with the gentleman about the parking in front of the reservoir, if we look on page 72 at the bottom, that wasn't Walter. That was I forget the gentleman's name that lives in the house across the street from the reservoir.
It was Mike Walters, wasn't that his name?
Yeah,
That's right. Yep.
that's it. Yeah.
Where was that again? I didn't notice the error. What page?
Bottom, page 72.
Page 72 at the very bottom.
Oh, right. Okay. I didn't even, yeah. All right. Yeah. And the last thing I have, and this is maybe would be clear anyway, but it's on page 75, halfway down the page with the paragraph, it starts Town Manager Jennings. And I think you probably said 2 grant applications. This may seem trivial, but
Yep.
yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. The motion has been moved and seconded. Further discussion. So I would amend my motion to include the changes on the February 1 minutes as noted. Otherwise, all in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay. Angus is going to give us the fastest 1 minute in town manager updates.
Okay, beginning with item L, that's, I'll say our new treasurer collector's really done a great job with collections. What you have in front of you is a list of properties that, unless there were payments that came in today, are going to go into tax title. So I just wanted to make you aware ahead of time.
So I do have a little question about that, Angus. So when, I mean, some of these are not substantial. They're very, very small, like $60 or something here. So does it make sense or pay to go to file when something is a $67 debt?
It's well, it's not not really a subjective choice. It's everyone's got to be treated equally. And
Okay.
it's kind of with the passage of time and the force of law, that status changes once notice has been provided and time passes.
But in other words, our filing fee might be more than the debt, right?
It may.
Okay.
In a couple of those instances.
But remember, it's a one-time thing to file tax title. You don't file one every year. It's one and done
Okay.
until it's paid off.
Yeah, basically, once it's in tax title, there's a separate account that's set up on the books that then has to be paid off separately from any current taxes that continue to accrue. So it's kind of a, once it's put into that status, it does not come out until that's paid off in full. Next item, item M, we had high hopes that this head crossing at high school would be relatively easy compared to the paid school one. That's not the case because of the proposed relocation of the crosswalk. With that said, I am in correspondence with Rep Mira, who's just been very, very helpful in reaching out and really staying on this issue. He's got a meeting down in Boston later this week, and Wayne is putting together a request of what funding we think would be needed for the Page School location. There would be some engineering required in that location because it's a more complex intersection. So we'll get those numbers to the rep tomorrow, and he's going to see what he can do potentially within a budget process to see if we can get some resources to that location sooner. But as far as the middle high school, until that crosswalk is relocated, we really can't put in the beacons because it's expected to be relocated, within 2 construction seasons. And the particular grant that we were looking at, the work would have needed to be completed by the end of May of this calendar year. So I just wanted to keep you aware of that. The next item on the soldiers and sailors, the CONCOM met earlier tonight to take up a request for determination of applicability. And tomorrow night, the public hearing before the planning board begins for site plan review. Wayne and Mike and I participated with a call or a Zoom meeting earlier today with the architects and engineers. And I think the team's going to be very well prepared for the public hearing tomorrow night. And we shared notice with citizens who we knew to be interested. But all of those materials that you have in your packet are up on the town website, linked from the planning board page.
Do we have any estimate from the architect as to how long they think their process will take? Obviously, it's dependent upon public hearings and, say the, planning board public hearing and any permitting requirements with the CONCOM and such. But is there any, sort of gross estimate as to when they might complete their work?
There is, and I don't have it in front of mind because it was in the contract that we signed with them, which was a little while ago. But I know the goal is to put the project out to bid. I believe it's late spring early summer with the intent of being in a position to award a construction contract to begin this summer. So that continues to be the timeline that they're working on. I know they're hoping that the planning board process will be a single meeting. I hope it is, but any delay is going to delay the timing. But they're on track with the schedule of getting it out to bid for work to begin this calendar year, and in fact to be largely complete this calendar year. If the bids come in higher than budget, that is going to throw everything into question. But if it comes in within budget, we should be in a position to get the project done this calendar year.
Yeah. Okay.
I did want to ask you the question about this decision that needs to be made about the method of heating and cooling. And I just sent out the materials earlier today.
Yeah, thanks. I read that. And yeah, I wasn't sure if this was the appropriate time to talk about that or not, but
I think it is, because unfortunately this, they kind of need an answer from us. And if we take 2 weeks to get them the answer, it's going to slow down the process. So
yeah, okay. Well,
my question isn't so much what's the answer as to how do we want that decision to be made. And if the board wants to make that decision, then I think right now we don't have cost numbers. We are going to get that within the next day and a half of what we think the upfront and the operating costs and the maintenance costs would be of the two different approaches.
Okay.
And so there's at this point going to be a meeting, another Zoom meeting this Wednesday at 1 on this topic.
Okay. Yeah, well, as you probably know from what I've said in the past, I'm very concerned with this. Any new building projects that the town does using fossil fuels, because we are going to have to change our method of heating all buildings. And, that's a virtual certainty. And I think if we heat the building, or, if we change to gas heat now, we will have to change that again in the future to something that is, purely electrically powered heating system. And, the heat pumps would be that. Gas is not. And the question is, do we care about the future, what the town's going to have to do in the future or not? And personally, I think I do. And, I hope that that's what we conclude. So Archie, I don't know. I guess Glenn's on too. Yeah. So I'm I don't know if you were able to look at that material that Angus sent out earlier today, or if you have any thoughts on it. But
well, I just don't know if can we. How long does it take to get more? No, I actually didn't have a chance to look at it,
Yeah.
but I thought about it. What you said at a previous meeting, and I thought about it. But are we basically? I guess are we changing things too dramatically at the last minute? That's all.
Well, it's not the last minute, but it's nearing a decision point where after that decision point, then it would be a change. I mean, at this point, it's they move ahead using one form of heating or another. And if they don't do that, they go one direction. We're going to kind of, bifurcate here. You go one way or the other, and what I'm suggesting is that going ahead with fossil fuels is, with something that has that is not net carbon neutral is going to have to change, and it isn't going to have to change. There are a bunch of drivers why it's going to have to change, including, which will probably be both state and federal mandates regarding regarding how the energy sources that we use.
See, I don't think that will be a very long time before old systems are mandatorily removed. That's going to be a huge undertaking to do that. So I don't think that's a reason to. That reason wouldn't convince me otherwise, because however, the idea of going forward with on a positive thing, rather saying, yeah, we should do it now, just because this is the technology of the future, rather than saying because we're going to have to rip out the gas thing in the future. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a long time before the government is going to mandate that people have existing furnaces removed. It's going to take that's going to be a long time.
But Archie, the point is though that it's not an existing system; it's a new system, and we can either go with the direction everything is going to go eventually, or we can go with the direction everything's going to be going away from eventually. We can either move forward or we can go back in time.
No, but I mean, you're making it I'm in favor of it in a positive sense, rather than being we don't want to have to rip something out in the future. I don't want to think about it that way, because
okay. So I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to present it, Archie, and I can and I can present it various different ways, and I could present it from a purely environmental perspective, and contributions to greenhouse gases and our children's futures. That's another permutation on the argument. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at it, and in my mind, they all point in the direction of not putting a new gas heating system in there, and instead going with something that is purely electrical.
Okay, well, I can get behind that. So, but what do we have to? Where do we stand? What do so at this point we have to tell the engineers what we want to do? Is that it?
Yeah, we don't know what the delta cost is going to be yet between the two, and
that's the thing. Yeah,
and
right. So we should know within a day and a half. And the memo that I sent around today, which we just got, just after 11 this morning, so it's all very new, new information. But it lays out the two options, and it gives for initial costs, operating costs, and maintenance costs, low, medium, high for each. And so there's pluses and minuses there, but it doesn't give us any dollar figures. So it's kind of tough to make a decision. We'll have that information within a day and a half. So I think it comes down to, do we, are you comfortable with my office working with Wayne and Mike, and whomever making a decision, or does the board want to make a decision once you have the full information? And if the latter, maybe we do a quick meeting just to deal with it, so we don't delay the project. And it's not, it's not great that we're just getting this information now. But I asked Lynn, when do you need a response? And she said, well, the longer it takes to get you, for us to get her response, even if that's just 2 weeks, she can't move forward, until we as the client make a decision.
Yeah.
But right now, we do not have complete information.
Okay. Can we schedule a meeting for Thursday for 15 minutes and no other item? If we get the information tomorrow.
Or as an alternative, you could get the information that we get on Wednesday and just singularly, alert us.
That's a good idea, Mike.
As to what your preference is, and the design team, which is what we are, will basically move forward with it. One point that I would also make is that the cost of electricity for us is not average cost. Because we have the solar field, we do have some advantages there. So when these people are figuring out the cost, I think they're assuming that we pay the regular rate, where, you know, our cost of maintenance there, or usage of it, will be at a lower rate than just a normal. So
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's do that.
Good. All right. So as soon as we get that information, whether it's late tomorrow or Wednesday morning, I'll send that around and connect with each of you individually, and we'll go forward.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Next item, we've got we're within sight of getting the electric vehicle charging stations fully activated here at the town offices. So we're looking at a week from Friday as the date for the installation of the transformer that's going to require a scheduled outage. So that's why we've kind of pushed that off on the calendar to hopefully get some warmer weather with a tentative fallback date of the following Friday, April 2nd. So once that happens, I think it's going to be, very quick that those, once that transformer is installed or whatever it is needs to happen, that we can get those stations fully activated. So at that point, we'll be ready with social media, to let people know those will be ready for people to plug in.
Great. So a related topic, 3 meetings ago, perhaps it was, I had mentioned that there was a program through DEP for DC fast chargers, and was going to look into that. And as it turns out, it's not viable for us, not because they've evaluated or talked about whether or not we would qualify for the grant, but because we don't have the right power and enough power in order to support one of the DC fast chargers at the 1910 building. Even with the new transformer that's going in, it's not the right voltage, and it wouldn't work. So that's kind of a moot point.
Good, thanks. Next item, just a timeline update on the Middle Street Bridge. You have the continuances that have been requested for both the Newbury Port and West Newbury Concoms, which have been requested to continue until April 5th and April 6th, respectively. That's for West Newbury and Newbury Port. West Newbury the 5th, Newbury Port the 6th of April is when those public hearings are expected to continue. At this point, we haven't yet received updated estimates of how the potential design change with the stormwater treatment structures will affect construction costs, and whether that would be a significant enough effect to cause us to reevaluate the number that we've proposed to town meeting. So we're waiting on that information.
Okay.
So that's all I've got.
Okay. Any Angus, I guess the one thing we really want to set up is hopefully we can have a representatives, at least some of the Concom, so we can talk about the wetlands bylaw at our next meeting.
Yep, that's the goal. Yeah, and we'll have Whittier on the next meeting, and who knows, maybe we'll have Essex retirement as well. We'll see.
Okay.
So, Archie, I assume that you were going to ask about any new business?
Yeah.
Angus, you were all wrapped up with?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, something that I mentioned probably a year and a half ago, and didn't really pursue, but I guess I'd like us to consider it. Many other towns in the Commonwealth have changed from boards of selectmen to select boards, which are gender neutral. And I think it's something that we should consider. I'm not sure exactly how a town goes about doing that. Don't know exactly what's involved, but I think it's something that we should consider doing. We've had women as select folk before, and chances are we will again. And I personally think, there's better than 50% of the population are women, and I think it's the name Board of Selectmen is somewhat of a relic.
I agree 100%, Rick. Mike, you're still on, right?
Yes.
It's remember I asked you about how we could do this, maybe even like 4 or 5 months ago, or maybe even less than that. It's relatively can't we call ourselves something? I thought it was going to be harder. Can you explain it to us?
No, well, the thing, other boards have done it, and they've gone through different permutations on it. In our case, right now, I think we had designated in the town manager legislation, and so that would be where the name comes from. So
Which name?
Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And so so we might have to actually change that in order to go to select board. This issue has come up a lot of times, and there have been other towns that have gone through a process, and sometimes some of them have gone through, they've either had a charter or something like that, but we have it in our town, legislation, so that would be a place to change it.
Hey, Rick, I'm not on here very much longer, so it sounds like a process that I don't remember the legislation part, but maybe that's, but I would definitely support starting the ball rolling on it. It's so antiquated, it's ridiculous that we even still have a name like that in the year 2021. So we can get it started. I would support you 100% on the idea.
Yeah, so, it sounds like there are at least a couple options of how it might be done, and I think what we're going to do is explore what those two options are, and we might be able to fix some other sort of structural problems at the same time. If it came down to amending the town manager legislation, then maybe we fix some other issues at the same time. Some other things that we later concluded could have been done differently, and that the town manager legislation, I think, was a great piece of work and a really valiant effort at something that this town had never done before. And but there's clearly have been we've had problems with some components in it, and so if that was the way we changed the name of this board, then maybe we try to at the same time simultaneously correct other issues.
Mike, can we do things like, but that is a even if we wanted to do, just knowing what we had to go through with the legislation before, Rick, even if we said, yeah, tonight, there's so many things that has to get passed by the legislature, and then it goes back to the Senate, and then there's so many steps. So this would be a year and a half or whatever before it got anywhere. But is there something we could do? Can we just call ourselves something different until that happens?
I thought we could, Mike. I thought we could.
Well, again, I haven't researched it. I know that it's been discussed on the listserv, and people have gone through different ruminations. The legislation does have in it that the Board of Selectmen can announce policies and rules and regulations. And so maybe if you adopt it as a selectman policy, that the Board of Selectmen shall be referred to as the Select Board. And that would be, something that would be authorized pursuant to the existing town manager legislation. So you
Hey,
say something like, you have a
Rick.
resolution that says that in accordance with section such and such of the
Right.
town, chapter 97 of the Acts of 2001, they adopt a policy saying that we'll be calling ourselves this now.
And then we work on the long-term thing, long-term.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I can-
let's put it on our next agenda.
Let's
Okay.
do,
I'll draft a resolution for that.
yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks for bringing that up, Rick.
That's good.
Thank you.
All right. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.